Hello. Okay, you hear me right? Okay. The lights are shining. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm super happy to be here. And this is actually my first time visiting Greece. And we just come back from a short vacation in Santorini with my girlfriend. So Greece is so beautiful and we're already loving it. And it's my great pleasure to be here and thanks for the organizer, MC and stuff, and all of you for being here. And sorry, I find that I can hear my voice from my laptop. Okay, it should be good. All right. Yes, okay. Okay, so let me introduce myself a bit. My name is Anthony Fu, and I'm a coding member of Vite, Vue, and Nux. I'm also the creator of a few open source projects, for example, like VTest, SlideDev, UnoCSS, Type Challenges, Elk, and also the maintainer of ESLint Stylistic, and Shiki, and 2/. I'm currently working at NutLab on the framework team. So you can find me with a link below. So as you can see, that I'm pretty enthusiastic about open source, which driven me to work on so many projects. So I love building tools and figuring out solutions and problems I encounter. So for example, like the slides you are looking at is powered by SlideDev, a markdown-based presentation tool that's built on top of web technologies. So it was formed when I find the existing tools were not flexible enough to present my code. So similarly, when I look into ESLint and its ecosystems a few months ago, I find there's so many things interesting, has a lot of potential, but not fully explored yet. So today, I'd like to share with you some of my findings and practice during my recent explorations around it. So 11 years since ESLint comes out, at this moment, it's easily one of the most popular tools in JavaScript ecosystem that's almost every project uses. And despite it has been around for such a long time, it's a tool that's still consistently improving and evolving. And today, I'd like to give a very bold and ambitious topic. I'll say ESLint, one for all, made easy. And to share with you some of the new perspective and patterns of using ESLint with the latest features they just rolled out. So you probably have heard that ESLint version 9.0 was released roughly 2 months ago. And the main highlight of this major version is the rolling out of the new config system called the flag config. So before we start, I would like to do a quick survey here. So have you heard about the new ESLint flag config? Could you please raise your hand for me? Or is the, okay, I'm trying. Okay. So, and how many of you are already using it or migrate to the flag config? Okay, 2 or 3, maybe? Okay, pretty cool. So, thank you. And so for those who haven't on flag config or haven't heard about it yet, in today's talk, I'm here to tell you why you should. So in case you have never heard about it or haven't dig into the docs yet, let me do a quick comparison between the legacy ESLint RC config and the new flag config for you. And to differentiate between those two configuration formats is rather straightforward. So you can find that from the file name. The flag config is named with .ESLint RC and with various extensions possible. And also you might read from your package.json. And while the flag config, on the other hand, would only be loaded from eslint.config.js file, a JavaScript config file as the single source of truth. When it comes to reusing the shared config, like you want to extend from someone else's config, the legacy config format implicitly use a convention-based extends properties that's load the config from your local node modules. So you would need to learn a little bit about that, how this convention work, like how the ESLint column recommend resolve a little bit to know where to resolve and how it's mapping to the package you install. So while in the flag config, we use native import, so it's more explicit and also like because it's JavaScript, you got more control. And for plugins, it used to take an array of string. and which again is a convention based and coupled with the package's name. So for example, like if you have a plugin view, that means it's resolved to ESLint plugin view. But now in the flat config, it takes a nan object and then you import, you got the object from native import. So this means you can rename plugins easily or switch to a fork without being forced to change every rules in your config. So also, the inherent nature of the extent might result very complex tree structure, as the shared config can also have a nested extent inside the config where that's not transparent to you. And in the flat config, it gets simplified a lot. And when you explicitly import a shared config as in multiple objects or arrays, you compose them into a single flat array, and you export it in the config. So to give a little bit more context, here is the graph I drew to demonstrating the timeline. While flat config might sound new to you, it's actually been planned for 5 years already. So the RFC was created in January 2019, and the first implementation is available in version 8.21 as experimental, which was 2 years ago. And then it becomes stable in version 8.45. And then recently, it becomes the default in the version 9. And in between, ESLint's team has published multiple blog posts to explain the reasons why they want to introduce this format and share the roadmap of the rolling out. So that's a lot of effort spent across this 5 years plan. So huge respect to the ESLint team. So as we mentioned in the previous slides, the biggest benefit of the flat config is in JavaScript. So you could have the full control. It uses native to resolve plugins config and make the inheritance and overridings a lot simpler. And because it's info in JavaScript, so shared config now can be a factory function that takes users' options. And the user can have a lot of capabilities and customize the orders or how it's resolved or do the patching for their specific needs. So before we talk about the new exciting stuff, then let me quickly go through the tools for migrating your legacy config to the new config in case you might need them. And since that in the flat config, extend fields is no longer support in favor of the native ESM import and also the array destructuring. Before all the shared config that has migrated to the flat config format, you could use the flat compat utilities from the ESLint/ESLint RC package to get back the extend features in your flat config. And recently, we also have the @ESLint/migration config, which is a CLI tool that converts your legacy config file to flat config. And whenever needed, the compatibility package we just mentioned will be used in the generated config automatically. So for the details migrations, I would recommend you to check the ESLint docs and migration guide. And yeah, and now let's talk about the interesting new tools and possibilities that are enabled by this new format. So the first thing is the ESLint config inspector, a visualized dev tool that allows you to inspect and play with your final resolved config. So you can run it by ESLint-inspect config in your CLI under the project root where you have your flat config file. And then it will open a browser page with the UI as the one you see on the right. So this one is a web page. And so the first thing it does is to listing all the each rules config you have. And as you can see, all of them listed here, and because it's flat. So here I have a rather complex config setup with with a lot of configuration items, but each items can provide the name, so you can easily see and understanding the purpose for each of them. And here I can expand each of them. And to see how it's composed. And okay, sorry, I'm a bit messing up because I think I need to. Okay, so here you can see you can expand it and to see how it's applied to certain type of files and how each rules are enabled. And there's like you can also click it, and you can see like a link to the docs and also a short description on it. And in some cases here, let me find. Okay, here you also see that there's some different configurations that each options are contributed to. Okay, yes. And okay, so here you can also see that for some rules you might have some config for that specific rule. When you click it, you will see the options passing into this to these rules. And since ESLint that you could provide different rules to different files based on the file path, based on the globe you specify. Right, and here that you can also do a little like testing. So here you can have a matcher. For example, like if I can type like package.json, and it'll tells you that this is the two rules that's specific to this package.json and why it's there. And similarly, you can also check that, for example, like app.view, and there is a view rules and for certain like that, and here you also got autocomplete of all the files you have that are matching into the ESLint pipeline. Yeah, and then here that's this gives you a good overview of how this ESLint config contributes to your project and how it affects. And also here you have different tabs. Here you have a rules tab, which listing all the rules available based on your setup. So if you have installed multiple plugins, here's all the plugins you have, and for all the rules you have. So not necessary that here is the or, I think. Yeah, they think this one. So it's not that all the rules are I'm enabled in this config, and so you can also check if there's any new rules you might find it useful. And here you can also filter by recommended, and you can find that, okay, this is recommended by the plugin authors, but I'm not enable it. You can consider if you should take that advice or something. And also you can see that if there's any deprecated functions here, and if you are using the deprecated ones or not. So here I also could have here I also have my config as an example here. The config is a factory function is called ANTFU, my name, and it takes some rather high-level options. With the config inspector, we can see how it resolve based on the configuration provided. Like for example, like here I disable TypeScript, but if I want to enable the TypeScript support, I'll just change this to 2. And when I save it, you will see the TypeScript rules appear here immediately, and you can see how it's contribute to the rules. And also here I can expand it to be an object. And if I want some like type aware rules, like it runs a TypeScript tracker alongside, I can say I have a tsconfig path, and I provide my tsconfig.json. And when I save it, you will see that there's some new rules like type aware parser, which is contributing to the parser, and type aware rules that enable the type aware rules, and based on the config you provide. And also here you have the stylistic, and for like you can configure the indentations, or if you want the semi or not. So yeah, so this is just a quick overview of the config inspect. It's a rather handy tool for testing, or like to manage your configuration file. And then to make the configuration customization easier for the user side, I also made a small library called ESLint flag config utilities. And for example, here I have a flag config that's we might have that's is rather complex. So depends on how each shared config is constructed. So here I import ESLint/JS, the ESLint default config, and TypeScript from TypeScript ESLint, and like for example like Uno CSS ESLint plugins. And depends on how each configs are structured, and some might be a plain object, and some might expose an array, and some might be a constructor that returns an object. So here, like you can see, that's probably TypeScript config recommended. I think I made a typo here, but it's an array, so you need to destructure it. And Uno CSS can be a function that you might need to await for it. And so when you use them together, it's usually your responsibility to join them together as a single array. So you have to know what they output and how you're going to resolve them. And with the config utilities, I made a utility function called compose, so which is automatically resolve different types of config, and it will automatically resolve promise and merge them together if there's one. And it also provides some chainable actions where you could insert an extra config where you want, or override some config without need to handling the merge manually. And for this, like when you expose a shared config to the users, like as a company shared config, or as a personal, as an organizations, you can use this tool to provide options, while that you could give the flexibility for certain object to override, or like to enhance the config easily in a more semantic way. And thanks to the flexibility of the flag config, it also has the full context available. So when you're constructing the config arrays, you don't actually depend on any logic from ESLint, because it's all native, it's all ESM export and the object. So it also makes the type generation process possible. So you can simply wrap all your config arrays with the exported type gen function, which I didn't show it here, but it will generating a type local.ts file based on all the plugins you have installed, because the plugins has a runtime JSON schema, so we can generate the type from it. It will provide you the autocomplete and type check for all the rules you are using. So here I can, when I type, I just put here is a JavaScript file, well I just do the JS types, but also you can use you can also use a TypeScript config file, which will be available soon in ESLint. And then you can get all the types, and you can also see the documentation with the link to the docs of a certain rules, which could give you more confidence. And so I'd like to bring, okay, out of sync. Okay, so here I'd like to bring back these titles. So all for one for all. So which is like maximize the flexibilities and customizability. So now it's possible to have a single shared config that covers all the different types of the project. So here we can do a quick comparison that's to show what I mean. So in the new flag config, a shared config can be a factory function that takes users' options, which we couldn't do that when in the legacy config. So imagine if I have a config repo, I want to manage all my config inside a project, so I can share across all my project. I may want my config to work both with TypeScript or with non-TypeScript based on the project need, or with Vue or with non-Vue project. So here I may end up with a monorepo that's published config for different combinations like ESLint config, ESLint config TS, ESLint config Vue, and Vue TS, right? And imagine if I have a more framework to support, more variables, and it will just like multiply the combination you are going to have, which is not reasonable, right? And so in the flat config, it allows you to provide the semantic options that to toggle each features dynamically. Of course, you can design the APIs by yourself, but here is like, yeah, I think here, yeah. So here, in the flat config, I can use Vue.to and TypeScript.to. So I can also have some logic to check if both are enabled. I will enable TypeScript in Vue as well. So this is it saves a lot of combinations, and also you could have a different API, but while that is like it's very semantic, you can read it from the right config. And then, like for example, like another example is like here is like for example, I want to override. I want to change the config. I want to change my indentation to full or to tab. So here, like usually in the older ways, like there's multiple rules handling with indentation. So you need to know what rules are enabled, and you need to override for each rule. Well, that's here is also a rather simplified example, because sometimes you will have an override field that you apply certain indentation to different file. Well, that you also need to remember to update. While here, that's in the flat config, you can just pass in a statistic with indentation full, and then inside the factory function, it can handle all the update for you. And so you, as a user, you don't need to worry about the details. So because of that, we could have a high-level abstractions to absorb the underlying complexity, while provide a minimum config as interface as prettier, so it can be easier as prettier, where the end user don't need to worry about the underlying details, but still have all controls when they really want to do it. So I say it's like a minimum configurations as prettier, but it's powerful and customizable as ESLint. And so flat config also made it possible for Meta Framework to provide project-aware config. For example, in Nux, we have a file-based routing, auto-import components, server API directory, etc. So files under different directories may have different names, may have different purpose or different constraint. So here in Nux, we are trying an experiment. We had a Nux ESLint module that's generating a sub ESLint config based on the user's project's setup. So if you rename your folders to another thing, it can automatically aware, and it will automatically change the generating config. So user can extend it from and keep it, and then they can still adding their own custom rules. So this is just one direction of possibilities with the flat config we're currently exploring, but we believe that will be more interesting approach coming from the community. So the other topic I would like to bring up today is the fact that ESLint is it's much more than just a linter. So to me, ESLint is a mature and powerful AST toolkit that has a huge ecosystem on its back. Because it's been there so while, it has basically integration for every IDE or every editors. We can reuse that. So the first thing is like the ESLint can be a formatter, and so this is certainly not new, and many projects are already using ESLint that way since the very beginning. But this topic can be actually a bit controversial, which you might hear some people saying that you should use a dedicated format like prettier or dprint. And to me, I see it's all down to those static rules for ESLint that would take a lot of effort to maintain. And last year, like ESLint and TypeScript ESLinting decide to deprecate all those stylistic rules from their core. And then I initiated the ESLint stylistic project to gather all those stylistic rules from JS, TS, and JXX into an organization and made the community to help keep them maintained. And so I've been using ESLint as formatter as I see it's much more flexible and customizable than Prettier, due to ESLint's very flexible nature. So if you are using where is it? Okay, yeah. And if you are using VS Code, you can set the editor code action unsafe to auto fix the ESLint errors unsafe. Or you can also use ESLint rule customization to silence those stylistic rules in your IDE, so you don't see the errors or the warnings when you missing the indentation. Well, that's when you save it, it's still automatically fixed for you. So it will be working more like a formatter. And for the other code editors, I believe there are a similar configuration you could do. Yeah, and also another thing is like one ESLint rule is that one ESLint rule is essentially a function that's take the code and the AST, and then it's analyze the AST and the reporting errors with optional fixed information. So that means ESLint can be a nice tool to be a code mode. And for example, I made the ESLint plugin command to do uncommand micro code mode. So I can show a quick video here. Yeah. So as you can see in these videos, I can put a magic command to say to function, and it will above a certain function that's when I save it automatically convert it to the function declarations. And also I can have the keep sorted, so I can make an object always sorted. When I move around, when I save it, always sorted again. So I can also have like keep unique to make sure that those arrays are unique, and I don't have a runtime cost of the set. And I can also do like hoisted regex and provide the name. When I save it, it just refactor my code to make the regex top level. Or I can do like converting if else to ternary, and not so sure if you should do it. But also here, like I'm just trying to demonstrating here is like you can have a lot of possibility here. So, and also you can if you know a little bit about AST, it shouldn't be hard to write your own like one-off code command rules to migrate your code base, because ESLint also have a report type, a report stage, right? Where you can see each errors, and then you can decide when to fix them with the ESLint --fix. So it gives you some controls and give a mature tool set. You can do something like that. And okay. So and finally, I'd like to mention that ESLint can also link for many other languages other than JavaScript. So for example, we have TypeScript ESLint to make ESLint understand TypeScript, and we also have ESLint plugin view for view single file components, and view plugin Svelte for Svelte components, and ESLint plugin Astro for Astro. And we can also have ESLint plugin JSON-C to link JSON files, which could be very handy to like sort a certain field and in a certain JSON file, which I use it a lot to keep my dependencies of my package JSONs always sorted. And similarly, it can also support YAML and Tom. And as you can see, many of those are maintained by Otamishi. He's truly amazing. And then we have GraphQL ESLint for GraphQL by Dima, and HTML ESLint for HTML by Yamgen, and then ESLint MDX by George Ching. Okay, and then I also made a ESLint plugin format to use prettiers or deepring to format files like CSS that are not yet have a proper ESLint integrations. So that's only a few I could list here. And you can also check the ESLint RFC number 99 which are trying to make ESLint more language agnostic to support the linting